Hello all and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris and each week I'm joined by hunky, hairy, huggable homos who love film to discuss movies and dish up a little bit of movie news. Although some weeks we forgo the movie news and give you two healthy, heaping doses. I couldn't think of more H's. I'm six H's in and I am all out of H's. But
holy hell.
Oh, there we go.
What?
There you go. Problem solved. So with me, as usual, are my wonderful co-hosts, Jim Poliafco. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks, and welcome to the podcast, everyone.
And with us as well is Will Lindis. Welcome, Will.
Hey, guys. Good to be back. Good to have you back.
Indeed. I hope you all had a great holiday season so far. For those of you who partake, Merry Christmas. Hope it was fun. Those of you who partake, Happy Hanukkah. Hope your 8 days of amazing gifts and togetherness were awesome. And for all the other holidays out there being celebrated as well, hope you're enjoying. Guys, we have the new year coming up, 2016. Can't believe it's going to be here already in
We are now into our fourth year
right?
of podcasting.
Wow.
Yeah, we are at the beginning of year 4.
That's crazy. We're like a Hunger Games franchise now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Not at Star Wars.
Dragging out this the final episode and split it into 18 parts.
You know what, guys? This is the last episode of the Movies Bears podcast, but we're splitting it into 342 episodes. So you'll definitely get, you know what I mean, your last listenership worth. Fear not. Because we know you're all worried about that. But anyway, I'm worried about that. I don't want it to be our last show.
No, this isn't our last show. This is actually, to be fair, this is our last show of 2015.
That is true.
That's something we can say. It is. Next time you guys hear from us, assuming you're not
it'll be
to this
next
episode,
year.
It'll be 2016 next time the group of us are sitting around talking movies again, and that's exciting.
That's true.
Actually, it's only kind of exciting because that means January and February movies are right around the corner.
That's true, but it means South by Southwest is only right around the corner from that.
Yes! Yes! Film festivals. Yeah.
Speaking of exciting movies, we're going to be talking about Joy and Carol, two holiday-named, thematically appropriate movies. I don't know. I'm thinking show title, guys, could be Joyful Carol. What do you think?
Maybe.
It works. It works.
Carol Full of Joy.
Carol of Joy. Wow,
it's funny.
Crazy.
I thought the play on words would write themselves. I really did when we were like, oh, Joy, Carol, those are both very Christmas themed. They're thematically appropriate. And then as I was sitting there working on the agenda before the show, so everyone can see how the sausage is made, I guess, I was trying to come up with the title, and I kept doing the exact same thing. Joyous Carol, a carol full of joy. And I think I ended up just calling this episode Joy/Carol because nothing worked.
I actually included an and, because I'm the one that sets up the show and gets it all operational before we start. And I'm like, Joy and Carol is boring as fuck. But what else are we going to call it? I don't know.
Hey,
anyway,
listeners, if you can come up with a better play on word for these two titles, put them in the comments. We'd love to hear them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jim, when you're editing, because this is kind of like our 3-man approach to doing the show, if you think of a better title, let us know.
I will definitely. Yeah.
I love that we each take a piece of our show and put it all together. It's like this conglomerative.
It's a well-oiled machine at this point.
It really is. It's kind of like we've kind of segmented the show into the before, during, and after segments.
Definitely.
Yep.
It works. So, guys, before we get into our movies for this week, I think it's only appropriate that we talk about Star Wars.
Again?
More? Again, because, you know what? As movie news goes, there's only one piece of movie news really this week, I think, that bears talking about. Star Wars crossed the 1 billion mark and does not show any signs of slowing down anytime soon. kind of crazy. I mean, it has broken so many freaking records at this point. Like highest ever Christmas Day opening, highest ever like Thursday night opening, Friday opening, Saturday opening, Monday, Tuesday opening. I don't know when Wednesday, whatever. Not Monday, Tuesday opening, but Monday, Tuesday, sales. Are you guys surprised by this at all?
No.
No,
I'm
not really.
not.
No? No?
I mean, it's weird to say, like, I'm not excited that this is one of the fastest movies in terms of box office numbers of all time. I should be surprised, but I mean, this is Star Wars we're talking about. Not only is it Star Wars, it's Star Wars with a new direction after people have been kind of burned by a previous iteration of Star Wars films. I think there were a lot of things that added into this formula, and part of it, I think, is the hype machine. One thing J.J. Abrams is brilliant at is kind of doing that 1 year lead up to the release of a new film. He's done that with other films before, and he was the perfect guy to get this up and running and off the ground with all of the excitement that it needs. So, not surprised, but I am excited to watch the whole thing unfold.
Yeah, I guess what is the thing that it just did? It was this is the fastest movie to reach 1 billion worldwide. This is domestic and foreign together.
Correct.
And they're actually thinking that this movie might get to $1 billion just domestically. They think there's a lot of factors for that. Will, you mentioned a lot. We've been kind of hungering for a really good entry or a really good movie in this franchise. And it appears that we got it, at least one that's hitting the buttons of the fans. People are, at least through word of mouth that I'm hearing, and on Facebook and stuff, people are going back and seeing this 3 and 4 times already. So that's driving the sales tremendously as well. If you get a lot of repeat, I mean, let's face it, probably the high 90% of movies that we see, all of us, us three combined, how many of those movies that we see do we actually go back and see, buy a ticket for, you know what I mean, in the movies? Mm-hmm. Not many.
Right.
It's got to be well below 5%, I'm guessing, or somewhere around there. But so people are seeing this movie 3 and 4 times. There's some crazy stuff going on with the demographics also of the movie, like who's seeing the movie. They expected a lot of dudes to go see this movie, but they're getting an increasing percentage of females now are getting interested in this movie, and that may have something to do with the portrayal of our heroic hero in this movie. Character in this movie, Rey. But yeah, there's a lot of factors. I'm not really surprised based on its, when we saw it in the opening and we saw the flood of positive word of mouth that it was getting, I'm like, oh, this thing's going to catch on fire, and of course it did. And not only that, I mean, this thing had $50-something million worth of ticket sales even before it opened, so. It had a running start, and all that adds up to Disney's making enough money at this point.
Yeah, I mean, this one's got a few different box office benchmarks that it's done. It did the 12-day total hit 1.09 billion. Right now, it's something along the lines of 15th highest of all time worldwide, which is very high. Because it's only been out for 2 weeks. Also, it hasn't released in China yet. It doesn't open in China until January 9th. So you're right, Jim. This one could hit 1 billion domestic, which is crazy. In fact, I think one of the projections I saw is 715 million domestic by next week, which is crazy to think about, like a 3-week total at $750,000. Crazy good, especially considering they've already surpassed their production and marketing budget. Like they've well passed that by quite a bit. They're doing nothing but profit at this point, and everything from here is just more and more dollars in the bank. That's crazy.
Let's ask our fourth co-host if he is surprised. BB-8, are you surprised? No, BB-8 is not surprised at all.
Speaking of BB-8,
yes, my segue. Want to give a quick shout out to some super cuties who are watching at home with their BB-8s. Check them out. How adorable, Paul and his partner Mark with their BB-8s.
Yeah.
So cute.
Hey guys.
Everybody's picking them up now. I bet they were a big item under the Christmas tree this year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Saw tons of them on Facebook. I love seeing all those videos of people playing with their droids. And for once, we don't mean Android phones.
That's true. This is very true. These are the droids we were looking for. Yeah, it's great. Like, I had one of our friends actually listened to the episode last week, and this for Christmas, my partner Scott got a BB-8, and I got a Finn bobblehead, and I was telling him like, oh my God, Finn was my favorite character from the movie. How'd you know? It's like, I listened to your show. It's like, good call,
Wow.
good job. Yeah,
That's awesome. You gotta love that.
it was a good Christmas.
And we got a Kylo Ren tree ornament.
We did.
Oh, how cool!
He's awesome.
Yeah.
And for Christmas, Santa Claus brought me this like slightly see-through like vinyl Force Awakens poster so that we can make a light box to put it on, like they have at the movie theaters. And then we're gonna we have like 4 of the different like Cinemark glasses. We're gonna like hot glue a different pair of glasses in each corner and like put our tickets and some pictures. And I was on the news. Maybe
I
I'll
saw that. Yeah. That's so cool. So can you give us the? I know this isn't box office numbers, but that's still exciting. Can you give us the quick and dirty?
So when we were standing in line, I mean, we had assigned seating, but we showed up a little bit early just to kind of check out who was dressed up, and we were kind of in the queuing area, and one of the news channels here in Tucson had a camera set up, and we didn't actually think they were recording, so we're just standing there like talking and chilling out, and blink and you miss it, but I was on camera with our buddy Jay, who was dressed as Han Solo, and it's funny, like over the last week, people keep coming up to us. Like, we're at our Beer Bust over the weekend, and like 8 people came up, and they're like, dude, totally saw you like on the Channel 4 news waiting for Star Wars. They're like, were you in line for like 3 days in order to get on the news? And I'm like, no, I literally showed up like 5 minutes before they started filming that. But
yeah,
it was funny. But yeah, so not surprised at all that Star Wars is just raking in the cash like this. Initially I thought, well, prequel movies were so awful, I was a little afraid that people weren't going to go see the movie because that bad taste was in their mouth. But then I was like, well, you know what? I think it's going to surpass all expectations. So is it going to dethrone Avatar, guys? What do you think?
Depends on if we're talking domestic or international, because those are 2 very different benchmarks. I think it's on track to beat Avatar domestic. International gets really scary because we're having to do $2.8 billion to beat it. And it can do that. It can totally do that. But I think what happens over the course of the first week of January plus the China opening is going to be really, really important in terms of getting there.
Well, I know a lot of people are seeing it multiple times. We've seen it twice at this point. Felipe, who was on the show with us last week, just wrote in, hey, Felipe, he says, I've seen it 3 times, could be 4 when my dad gets back in town. So, I mean, this has a lot of rewatchability, you know. So
we may see it again, too. You never know.
Yeah, I would be down.
Yeah, I'm planning on one more time as well. I had so many other movies to get to, like all of the Oscar movies came out at the exact same time thing. But most of that has settled down. I've only got 1 or 2 left to kind of. So I'll probably be kind of early January catching one more screening.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Yeah, we're getting to that time of the year where it's coming down to like closing the year off. There's still a few films that we haven't had access to yet. So end of the year lists and stuff like that. I know a lot of people, a lot of outlets have them out, but they have access to press screeners and stuff like that. But But we're starting to get down to it, right? I mean, we're going to start working on ours pretty soon.
Yep, it's that time. 'Tis the season. So, well, guys, we have 2 movies to talk about. Are we ready to get to it?
I think we are. Yeah, let's do this thing.
All right, awesome. So, as is typical when we review films, if you're new to the Movie Bears podcast, we'll just kind of let you know how it works. We'll review each film spoiler-free, give you our general impressions, whether we think you should see it. Unlike Star Wars, which we talked about last week, Joy and Carol are 2 films you may never have even heard of, much less be considering seeing. So let us give you some thoughts. Maybe we can help you make a decision if you're looking for something to see, if you're off this week or have some extra time. But then when it's time for spoilers, we'll give you fair warning before we open the floor up for those. But here we go. Our discussion first is Joy. All right, so Jim, I know you have been looking forward to this movie for a very long time. Why don't you give us a little bit of setup for Joy and whether you think people should be jumping for Joy or, yeah, that fell totally on its face. Horrible joke. Sorry.
Jumping for Joy. Wow. I don't know. Well, Joy is a new, I guess, drama/comedy. From a director we know very well, David O. Russell, who gave us, Three Kings, I Heart Huckabees, Silver Linings Playbook, The Fighter. 2 years ago, the most recent one that we probably would recognize is American Hustle, which we reviewed on the show as well. So several of these shows already. I mean, being in our 4th year, we've covered quite a few of these movies already. But yeah, this is a new movie by him, starring, Jennifer Lawrence. And the reason I was looking forward to this movie is to see Jennifer Lawrence in another. I mean, she does a lot of. It seems like these days she's either in Hunger Games movies or David O. Russell movies. And I'd much rather see her. I got tired, as we talked about, of the Hunger Games series and seeing her as Katniss. I'm glad that's over so she can branch out a little bit more. This role was interesting for her, and we'll get into some of those things. But anyway, the movie is about, it's kind of a based on a true life story, I will say, about this divorced young mother named Joy Mangano, who went from kind of rags to riches. It's a rags to riches story, and her on her path from being a divorced mother of kids to an overnight success, kind of in the consumer products industry. I don't want to give too much away because if you go into this movie fresh, you might learn something, and I don't want to kind of give away a lot of the details here, but it's, I guess from what I hear, the movie's semi-fictional and semi-true, but it is based on her life. It's based on this character, this real woman, who some of you may know if you turn on the what's now, I guess, the Home Shopping Network, HSN, or QVC. Her name pops up a lot on those shows. Anyway, this one also stars Robert De Niro, Bradley Cooper. We've seen both of them in movies like American Hustle, Silver Linings Playbook. And so David O. Russell is kind of playing in the same sandbox again in terms of the casting and the acting talent in this movie. So as far as my initial thoughts on it, I kind of enjoyed this movie. This movie is kind of all over the place. And it was, as a film, I think it barely holds itself together, but it's still somewhat enjoyable. And it felt a little choppy in places, maybe towards the end. It seemed like, hey, maybe there was some things missing. But I enjoyed the performances. There were some great moments in this movie. To me, it's a good kind of holiday movie. It's not about the holidays, but I think it's light enough entertainment. It's not super what's the word I'm looking for? It's dramatic, but it's not like a depressing movie. It's kind of an uplifting movie, I guess, from the aspect of the rags to riches story. But yeah, I mean, I think this movie is pretty good entertainment if you go out to the movies to see it. I don't think there's anything, at least for me, to say, stay away from this movie. If you like Jennifer Lawrence, you want to see her do something other than Katniss, I think this is a good chance for you to go out and see her, along with a good cast, in a movie that's pretty entertaining. So what do you guys think?
So I think we're getting a lot of, like Hunger Games hate. I myself am not necessarily in the Hunger Games hate category.
You're not in that Katniss category?
Not Katniss category. Yeah, those movies were not the best, but I don't hate them. And I think J-Law just didn't have a ton to work with, unfortunately, with that character and how it's set up. But in any event, I absolutely loved her in Joy. I thought she did a fantastic job. She had me jumping for joy with her performance. I really appreciated how she could go from, like, crazy, overstressed, pulled in 20 directions, like single mom, to, like, businesswoman, like, totally rip your balls off and make you eat them, like man-eater, you know what I mean? I appreciated that. I liked seeing that. Probably, it's one of those performances where she kind of got to spread her wings a little bit and do something a little bit different, which is good. Some of the other members of the cast, Bradley Cooper, it was good to see him back again. I always enjoy seeing him on screen. I just wish we could have seen him, with less clothing as usual. But not every movie can be American Hustle with him like showing off his very chest the whole movie. Hey, what? You know what? These are my unfiltered thoughts. I don't write anything down.
No, not disagreeing or not putting you down. It was more just kind of like hey, that type of statement.
You know what? That man has many talents. I just wish I could see all of them. So.
Woo!
Anyway, Robert De Niro, he didn't have a lot in this movie either, but I mean, he was fine. He made me laugh. Good to see Isabella Rossellini in this movie.
Yes.
Haven't seen her in a while. Donna frickin' Mills in this movie. I'm like, really? Right. Awesome. Diane Ladd, she played Mimi. I really enjoyed her as the grandmother. So, but yeah, I mean, this is one of those movies where it's not like a big, huge, epic, sweeping plot. I mean, it's just a little like corner of, home slice. You know what I mean? It's kind of telling a story that I guess is semi-based on a real world person. I don't know how true it is compared to real life either, but I enjoyed the story that it gave us. I do think, though, Jim, there's something to what you were saying about some of the pacing issues. I think it's pretty inconsistent at times. There are times where I'm like super engaged and other times where I'm kind of falling asleep a little bit because it's kind of like, where is this going? Like, what are we doing? But overall, I mean, it's good.
Yeah, not just that, but like it jumped between tones too a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Not just the pace, but tonally it was kind of a mishmash.
Well, sure, definitely. But one of the things I actually kind of like that a little bit because life is never one consistent tone, at least not for me. There are like some parts of the day I just feel so totally like overburdened and stressed that it's like, I don't know, it's crazy. And then like 25 minutes later, I'm like feeling super happy and on top of the world, and it probably means I need some kind of mood evener drug or something. Who knows? But I don't know. This movie just, it kind of gave me that sense of like what real life is kind of like for people at times. You know what I mean? Like, even when something really, really great happens, there's usually something really shitty that kind of accompanies it, and I don't know. Thought it was kind of cool. Will, what about you?
Yeah, I think you guys liked it slightly more than I did, but I did not dislike Joy. First of all, we got to talk about Jennifer Lawrence. I think she is absolutely amazing here. She carries so much weight here, and she carries it so beautifully. I'm not a Hunger Games hater. I think she does quite a bit of interesting thing there for for something that's more of like light entertainment. Here she has something weightier, something a little bit meatier to sink her teeth into, and boy, does she. She has such tenacity here. She is #fierce all the way through this movie, and I love that. I guess where I run into a few more problems with it is kind of the rest of the movie. And what I mean by that is I think that the supporting characters don't have as much to work with, which in some ways makes sense. This is a movie about Joy, titled Joy, starring Joy. But I think that a lot of the other characters do come across as very one note. They're either the supporting character or they're the obstacle character. And a lot of characters don't really do a good job of straddling the line between them. It's very black and white for me. There are definitely some pacing issues. There are some really small quibble things, but enough so that it took me out of the film. There's spots where a particular obstacle is brought up, and then in the next scene that obstacle is no longer present, and it doesn't explain how they cleared that obstacle. And you don't necessarily have to show every single one of those, but it does take you out of the movie and go, wait a minute, I thought that was just, didn't she, and how did, okay, I'll just watch the movie. And that's not something you want to do when trying to be engrossed. This isn't a bad movie, but I don't think this is the best David O. Russell movie. It's at best for me, probably a light recommend, but unfortunately there are so many other things in theaters right now that I would recommend more, that I think that...
Other than Star Wars?
Other than Star Wars, I saw like 5 movies this week, and I think that Joy is the one that I probably liked the least. So that says something.
Yeah. Try that in March.
Yeah. Like if Joy was a mid-February release, go watch Joy. Go right now. But it's not. They held it because David O. Russell is part of the Oscar bait, Oscar push type thing. And unfortunately, I think the film suffers. I mean, the film was number 3 in the box office this week. People saw it. People saw this movie. But I don't know. For me, it's lacking a little bit. Jennifer Lawrence is amazing. She deserves every accolade you throw at her. And nothing else in here is like straight out bad. Like there's a lot of like decent things here, but just there are so many inconsistencies, such an unevenness to it that. Yeah, it's probably very soft recommend at best, very kind of a light recommend.
Yeah, and I think though this is a movie that's what I meant by it's a good Christmas release. I think it's kind of a middle of the road thing. It's not going to give you the kind of high cinema appeal that we'll talk about Carol a little bit more. But I mean, it's not going to kind of it's more of a crowd pleaser kind of a movie without being a blockbuster. It's it's a human story. It's got some funny characters. It's got some likable characters. And we could talk about like Will, you talked about some of the characters being one note. Yeah, I think there's sometimes when it showed her interacting with her family, it felt very farcical at times. Yeah. Those things, the comedy there kind of bordered on farce and slapstick a little bit, which went, I think that's what I meant by tonal shifts. I think it went a little too far there. But still, I mean, like I said, I think, and Jennifer Lawrence, I mean, she's still a young actor, and she was carrying, trying to portray somebody, I think, who's a little bit older, a little bit more worldly. It's kind of a leap. And it speaks to her talent, where she can make you think that she's a divorced 30-something-year-old mother who is in the struggles of taking care of kids, taking care of parents, and kind of holding the family together. And I kind of liked some of those scenes until they swung a little bit too far into the farce. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I think this is for a lot of people who I guess wouldn't be considered cinephiles. I think this is a good crowd-pleasing movie.
Yeah, and I definitely agree that there are some spots with the family that work extremely well, especially early on, before the story picks up too much and before she's, goes off too much into Inventorland. there's some spots where it's just there's this one scene, and this isn't spoilery. This is a fair one to talk about. There's one scene where she's just dealing with all of the stressors that happen in her home. Stuff with her mother, stuff with her kids, stuff with her ex, stuff with her dad. All of these things happening at the same time. And I think that was an extremely well-crafted scene. It was all designed to show us just how much weight was sitting on top of this character and how close she was to cracking and how resilient she was despite all of that weight. I thought that was a beautiful scene. Where I kind of lost it a little bit more was some of the family members continue to be extremely harsh, extremely rough around the edges, which again can be realistic, can be something that happens in real life. But there's a certain point where it stops feeling realistic and it starts feeling a little bit more, like you said, Jim, a little farcical. Like some of these obstacles are extremely artificial for the sake of plot. And doing a little bit of research on the film, I found out that a lot of the things about this character are a lot of the weirder things that happened in this movie actually did happen to Joy, but a few of the things did not, including one character who was created specifically for this movie, and that was the half sister. And I had a problem with the half sister. Like I think that her role was way kind of over the top, artificial. And in reading that she was a character made specifically for the movie and didn't actually appear in real life, I find myself kind of wondering why. Like that's something I would have cut. Nothing against the actress or anything like that. I just think the role kind of hurt the film more than helped it, for me at least.
Interesting. Well, guys, what do you say to get into some spoilers for Joy?
Let's do it.
That would make me feel overcome with joy.
Wow. As you made that hand motion, I'm like, where are you going?
No. Oh, God. No, nothing with the hand gestures.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, spoilers for Joy are officially fair game. I always hate going to the spoiler part of the show sometimes because we just went from like 10 people watching to like 2. Because I imagine people don't want to
totally switch to all no spoilers none of the time.
We could, but I think that would be boring for us. And you know what? Maybe. As much as we love our listeners, we also love ourselves. This show has to be enjoyable for us.
We do love ourselves.
There's a certain point where we kind of talk around films, and it's like, and then there's the I like our format. And people can always come back in like a week later. And it's like, okay, now
true.
Come back for no non-spoilery Carol.
That's right. Rejoin us in 14 minutes and 7 seconds for our discussion with Carol. I've got a timer going.
Exactly 14 minutes and 7 seconds.
It's actually 13 minutes and 58 seconds now, but anyway, so spoilers, totally fair game at this point. If you listen, you do so at your own peril. So in terms of where to start for this one, you guys mentioned it kind of goes to the farcical, maybe it's a little bit over the top. Why do you say that exactly? Like, what moment made you sit up and say, "Oh, this is too farcical"?
Go for it, Jim.
I'm not sure the specific moment, but there are some things that come to mind, like, the Haitian plumber and the mother joke got to, they worked that a couple of times. De Niro plays a crazy dad again. I don't know. There was just a feeling there of like where they were kind of pushing the comedy boundaries for some reason in the movie, and it was kind of in the movie, and then the movie would jump to like kind of the mechanics of like how she built her, she was building her business. Which I also found kind of interesting, and I wish we had gotten a little bit more of that, and especially in the payoff. I didn't think there was there was a scene, don't get me wrong, about, that kind of paid off, but it kind of came out of nowhere. It seemed to come out of nowhere a little bit for me. I don't think it was set up the way that for maximum effect. I didn't know much about Joy Mangano going into this. I just knew, hey, she's the woman who invented the Miracle Mop, and I know the Miracle Mop was a huge thing, and sold millions and all this stuff. But I can tell you, this movie. One of the things this movie will do is make you want to go find out more about the real Joy Mangano.
Oh, totally.
Oh,
I
yeah.
actually went and on YouTube and pulled up some videos of her on QVC and HSN selling her latest thing, and she's still doing it. Like, she's selling air fresheners and clothing, portable clothes dryers, and all kinds of stuff that she's supposedly invented. Now, I don't know. It kind of showed her at the end of the movie having people with inventions come to her to decide if they were going to get. So you got to kind of wonder how that business really works. Like,
right.
One of the things that was fascinating to me is like how you hold on to an idea, and like, if this idea was hers, was it really hers? Was there a patent on it from somebody else and of something similar? And will she be able to hold on to that idea to the end in order to benefit and make financial gain out of it? I found that very, very interesting. And I wish we had gotten maybe just a little bit more of that, especially when it came to the payoff at the end, which it kind of, when a movie comes down to it like this one, that scene at the end about, oh, I'm going to sue you for this and I'm going to sue you for that, it kind of took a little bit of steam out of what I thought could have been a better ending or a better payoff. But we get what we get, and maybe that was very close to the way it happened in real life. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, I don't think there's there's one scene, there was one individual moment that like turned it into farce for me. Like, I don't think that's the case. I think there are a few kind of irregularities within the film, and those kind of add up, like kind of an attrition type thing over time. Like the mother herself was a very over the top character, set amongst what felt like a very real-ish type situation. I think the mother was manufactured for the film. Like, the mother didn't have like a soap opera addiction and stay in bed all day. The ex-husband, the fact that he was made into a Venezuelan singer, like trying to make it in the music industry, that didn't really do much. That was also created for this film. So it was like the original things that David O. Russell came up with for the script were almost like. It's almost like when something is already like the perfect flavor, and then someone goes and adds ketchup to it or some seasoning anyways. Like,
too much salt.
Yeah, it's like it changes the flavor in a way that's not needed, and I think that's what some of those details here do. One big thing for me that I think did not work, and because it didn't work, so much of the movie hinged on it, was the narration from the grandmother throughout the course of the film, who later ends up being, we're in spoilers, later ends up being dead, and it's kind of like narration from beyond the grave. Like, I did not need that.
That was
like,
a little bizarre, yeah.
This film didn't need a narrator, did it? Like,
No.
I think the stuff that we saw on screen was fine. I think we could have just gone straight in, or maybe if you need to have a narrator, why don't you have Joy do it and have her say, I didn't know at that moment that this, that, and the other thing would happen. That would even feel even more empowering.
And the weird thing is, she, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean, the grandmother, even at the end of the movie, it's like, well, Joy had no way of knowing. She didn't know at an exact moment, blah, blah, blah. And it actually, like, distances you at that moment, I feel. It pulls you out of what's going on, because it's like, wait.
Who's that talking?
Whose voice is this again? Oh, it's dead grandma, like dead Mimi, whatever she called her. Like, why is she still talking? You know what I mean? And then I find myself like, wait, okay, what happened?
It might have worked if the grandmother had... If they had portrayed the grandmother having a much more spiritual, effect, you know what I mean, on Joy. I mean, she was kind of there on the outskirts of things in the family, but you never really saw. I don't think I recall seeing that super strong connection to the grandmother. Even though the grandmother seemed like probably the sanest person in the family, and there was that connection. I wish they had cemented that relationship a little bit more, and then I could maybe see some emotional payoff in that voiceover. But
yeah, the narration hinges on that, right? And we don't see a lot of that in the movie. All we really see is just the grandmother a couple of times say, I support you, Joy, and then like she gets kind of drowned in the voices of everyone else. because we don't get that the strength of that bond. We don't really attach ourselves to the narration. I loved seeing Isabella Rossellini in this, but I feel that some of the scene, and I think she did a great job with the material. I think she really did. I loved what she gave us. At the same time, I felt that some of the things that were written for her were almost written for the trailer. Like if that feels interesting enough. Like there's like this whole the thing in the trailer about do you take the gun? Yeah, I take the gun. It's a great trailer moment. It's a fantastic trailer moment, but it feels so awkwardly placed in this movie.
Yeah. It's like, what is she getting at? Like, she is way out there. She obviously she's another character that's kind of way out there. Like, you know, the Teakwood Dick. You know, but, you know.
Speaking of awkwardly placed, I want to give a live shout out real quick to Alejandro from Tampa, who says, I've always wanted to catch this, and I finally did. Hashtag hell yes to spoilers.
Yeah!
Alejandro.
All right.
Awesome.
Hey, Alejandro.
Glad to have you watching. Good stuff. Jim, we met Alejandro at Convergence a few years ago.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Hey, Alejandro.
Run into him a couple times.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to do that. Like, you guys meet so many people doing these different like events and stuff like that.
Just
I feel
do
like
one,
I'm missing out. I need to do one sometime.
Yeah.
If TBRU wasn't like during the week of South by. That would be the perfect one for you. Yeah.
Like, I think like financially, just like, oh man, this would break me here, this would break me there. But TBRU, I could totally do it. I can afford that. It's just a quick drive up the road. Shit, South by.
Right.
But hey, if anyone's around for the next year's Austin Chill happening here in Austin, you should come join me. That one.
There you go.
There you go. Nice. Yeah. So in any event, so I don't know. Some of this stuff is awkwardly placed. You guys are absolutely right. Although I got to say, I really enjoyed more about like the creation of the mop and the process behind it than the whole like, oh look, Joy is now a superstar ending thing. Like I really loved watching her, especially like in the Kmart parking lot, trying to get people to try out this mop, because like, you know, as a creator, I like to think that like I write gold on the page sometimes as a writer, you know, but it's so hard to get someone to like seriously pay attention to your work and recognize it sometimes, you know what I mean? And I can only imagine like if you created like the world's best mop, you know what I mean, or wrote the world's best story. It doesn't matter if you can't get anyone to use it or read it or, you know. And I loved her friend from Orange is the New Black. Loved seeing her, right? But I loved her friend, like, walking up and, like, you know, trying to help out. And I don't know. I liked that interplay quite a bit. And
can I throw this in the washing machine?
Right, right, exactly. You know what I mean? So it was kind of, it makes me want to invent something cool. You know
it makes me want to go out and buy like, I already have a mop, but like this was a fantastic like $80 million commercial for the Miracle Mop, right? Like, God. Watching it, it was just like, holy shit, I need one of those right now. And I'm like, oh, I have one already, but like.
Well, what's funny is like this movie, like it's all about, oh, it's the only mop you'll ever need, right? And I remember my mom bought 3 of those mops, and 2 of them just sat in the closet for 3 years, and she ended up giving them away as Christmas gifts because she was so used to just buying multiple mops. You know what I mean? Having to replace them eventually. So like every time J-La's on the screen, she's like, "It's the only mop you'll ever need." I'm like, "Oh my God, that's so true!" Like, you know.
But yeah, I did like that interplay with I don't remember the actress's name, but like even after the movie, like my boyfriend Scott was immediately like, "Oh my God, that's Dayanara from Orange is the New Black." Dasha Polanco.
Dasha Polanco, yeah. Yep, totally. It was great to see her.
I thought she was great, and I loved that scene at the Kmart parking lot, and I loved there's a scene where Joy is doing the QVC sales pitch the first time she's on air, and she freezes, and her friend Jackie, Dasha, calls in and it's like, "Hey, I want one of those. How much would one of those cost?" Like, I think that sounds really cool. Did some research. That actually happened. Like, her friend actually did call. So, like, yeah, like I was saying before, some of the weirder things in this movie actually did happen. And I think that's why they picked this story to do, because there is a good story here. There's something worth telling. I enjoyed that scene. I enjoyed that character.
There was one scene also that I really loved, and it's kind of a small scene, but it's also in the trailer. a little bit of it is in the trailer, when she has a particularly rough meeting with her family about, coming up with mop parts or whatever, and she's super frustrated. And there's some kind of shooting gallery right beside the garage where they're setting up the shop. And she comes out and she asks the dude, she says, "Do you mind if I try this out?" And he says, "Sure." And he gives her the shotgun and to do target practice with. And she turns toward the camera and she fires off, a few shots with the shotgun. And I'm like, yes. I mean, Will, you mentioned that, she plays there are some fierce moments in this for the character, and I'm like, that is better than anything Katniss did in the last two movies of the Hunger Games. Like, when she's firing that gun off, I'm like, yeah, go get it, girl. It gave me a visceral feeling that I never did get from Katniss toward the end. It was a great moment. I thought, great character moment.
Yeah, totally.
Whether it happened or not, I don't know. But
so, guys, since she has developed this whole empire as a result of her miracle mop, does this make her a mop boss?
A mop boss.
Mop boss. I get it.
I wonder if she's used that already.
I'm sure she has. I kept thinking the obvious joke here was Jennifer Lawrence was really good, but I think it would take a miracle for her to mop up at the Oscars.
Oh,
there you go. Yeah, it's probably true. I don't know. I don't. This is a kind of movie where I just don't know if the character or the performance is weighty enough to get serious consideration for Oscars. She might get mentioned for a nomination or be in the running for a nomination. I just don't know if I could see anything coming out of it. If you remember a couple of years ago, American Hustle. I think American Hustle got kind of passed over for a lot of the nominations too.
It was nominated quite a bit, but I think it fell out in terms of the actual.
Right.
But I think the problem we're going to run into for J-Law on this one is that it's probably a hard film comparatively for Oscar voters to get behind. I think that it's going to get some support. I would put money on her being one of the five names on the ballot, but I have a feeling she might be facing some stiff competition, possibly from another film that we're going to talk about in this podcast.
Maybe so.
Who I think may have a better shot at actually taking it.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, we do have a whole nother movie to discuss. And our timer has officially expired.
So, 1407. The people that came back are probably like, oh my God, still spoilers.
Come on.
Right? So the last thing I'm going to say is I just did a Google search for mop boss, and the only thing it finds are Mists of Pandaria bosses from World of Warcraft.
Oh.
Well, you need to email that right now. We need to tweet that and with Joy on the
totally.
With their tag on there.
Actually, you do need to tweet that to the actual Joy Mangiano, because if I'm not mistaken, it was about this time last year when you guys tweeted a picture of yourself to from Wild and got some feedback. So maybe that's the annual tradition. You guys tweeting and getting a like or response.
Maybe, except the 10 people who are listening probably just tweeted that already. Thanks.
No, beat us to the punch.
Should have patented it.
I will say though that the Joy Mangano that I saw on some of the YouTube clips and interviews comes across a lot less fierce. And not to say that she's not a fierce businesswoman, because she must, she's obviously doing shit right when it comes to that, and got herself well positioned. But definitely more. How do I say this? Much more refined than we saw in the character, and I think that's partly because this movie didn't cover all of Joy Mangano's life from early on till now. It kind of ends right at the beginning of her super success, and doesn't give us much of a glimpse into when she probably made huge waves in the retail, online and retail businesses. But
Indeed. Well, guys, believe it or not, we do have people joining us. I assume they kept our countdown in mind. So I'm thinking it's time to switch. Are we good with that?
I think we're there. I think we've said what we need to say about Joy.
All right. Joy to the world. Any
Joy.
other joy jokes? Happy joy.
That's a very good pull.
Comfort and
comfort and joy. Nice. All right. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about a lesbian love drama in Carol. So, Will, you kind of alluded to this during our Joy discussion that this movie might overshadow Joy a little bit. It seems only logical maybe you give us a little setup for this film and whether you think it's worth that potential Oscar eclipsing.
Yeah, absolutely. So our setting is New York, 1950s, and we have this young, naive shop girl, and she's played by Rooney Mara. And through the course of this movie, Carol, she falls in love with, well, Carol, an older married woman played by Cate Blanchett. As you mentioned, Brad, this is a lesbian love drama, and I think it's a very interesting movie for me. There was a lot of hype going into this one, like all the Oscar buzz, all of the awards buzz, and such. Initially, when I first left the theater, first moment, I felt slightly underwhelmed, but that was only at first. The more, I guess, like the slow, tender, and genuine romance of this movie kind of seeped into my essence, into my every fiber of my being, or whatever. Just the more I thought about it when I got home, the more impactful it became. This isn't a very large, sweeping, dramatic film. While there is some drama and there are some of those moments, there's a lot of this film that is understated, and I think that works to its credit. I think that I found myself, the more and more I think about this movie, the more of a positive reaction it has on me. We have two brilliant lead performances here from Rooney Mara and from Cate Blanchett. Cate Blanchett is easily the front runner for the Best Actress award at the Oscars this year. Not to say that she'll necessarily get it, but I think that she's not only is she in the running, I think she's the person to watch. But it's not just an actor showcase. This is also a cinematographer showcase as well. A lot of the cinematography here is very, very gorgeous. Everything has a slightly muted color palette, as is the case for like 1950s period pieces. But the colors are very bold despite this, especially the red and the green shades, which, of course, this is, there's a Christmas thing happening to this movie. It is Christmas around this, inside the movie itself, so that makes sense. Everything has a texture to it. Like, you can reach out and, like, touch, like, the coarse fabrics or feel the humidity in the air. A lot of those things like that feel very palpable. There's some really neat shots, a lot of them very thematically appropriate, that are shot through glass, people reflecting on things, looking through windows. You see that as a recurring theme through the movie. This is a really solid movie. I think that because it is an understated lesbian love drama, it's hard for me to recommend this to everyone, because I think there might be some people who are like, oh, this is maybe a little too slow for me, or I need more action, or what have you. That said, I absolutely adored this movie. I love what it was trying to say. I love the way it said it, and I love the performances that appeared on screen. We're not at our top 10 of the year list episode, and I don't know where this one's going to land, but it's definitely one of the film that's in the consideration for me. I love it that much. So if you have the same sensibilities as me, or if any of the things that I just said sound appealing, you should absolutely go see Carol.
All right. Jim, what about you?
Yeah, I like this film too. Will, I think I might have liked it a tad less than you, even though my expectations going in were like, I really want to see this movie. I had heard a lot of good things about it. I had saw a trailer. Have seen a couple of Todd Haynes movies before. Definitely, Far From Heaven is one that I think I just plugged on an episode not too long ago. Which has a lot of parallels to this movie, actually. Both deal with homosexuality as a main theme. Both of them are set in the 50s, although Carol is set probably like 5 years before Far From Heaven in the early 50s, as opposed to Far From Heaven in the late 50s. Will, you talked about color palette and photography. Yes, the photography cinematography in this movie is fantastic. I do have a quibble about it though. But before I get to that, I want to talk about the the color palette is muted in contrast to Far From Heaven, which it was also set in the 50s, and that had like a super vibrant, like Technicolor saturation turned up 50% kind of look to it for stylistic choices. The one thing filmically, I was asking at the end of the movie, I'm like, this movie definitely had a noticeable grain to it, which doesn't really bother me. But I was just wondering, like, how did they get that? Did they put that in post? Do they have like a special film they use? And it turns out I heard that he actually filmed this on 16 millimeter film, and then so from that you blow it up and you get grain just like you would in a picture or any other film camera. When you do an enlargement of a smaller format film, so that explains that a little bit. The shooting through windows thing got kind of old for me a little bit. Those things are great when you don't notice them, like they're not in your face. Like, oh, here we go, another scene shot through a window, or another scene shot through a car windshield. It got to be a little bit too much, thematically and what they were trying to say. I get it. Maybe some people might not know it, but I just became sensitive to it kind of early on in the movie, and I'm like, because we'll get to it in spoilers.
Do you have a problem with the burden of isolationism, Jim?
I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, I mean, I like the themes. I really wanted to connect to this movie emotionally, and I did a little bit, but not as much as I would have liked to. I mean, it's a really it's a story where there's a lot said without dialogue, just in glances between characters. There's some great scenes between the two characters, and you could definitely feel the attraction that they had. I just wish that I had felt a little bit more of the pain that both Carol and Therese, the other character, were going through, and I can't quite put my finger on why that was, because I think the movie was set up for me to feel that. I just didn't. But still, again, like you said, Will, it's a movie that you hesitate to recommend to all your friends. Definitely my friends who are into cinema, I would say definitely go see this movie. But if kind of a slow burn romance story, period set romance story, doesn't sound like it's up your alley, it's probably one that I don't know if you're gonna appreciate that much, but you never know. You could be surprised if you're open-minded. So yeah, I mean, I give this one a recommend, definitely, but I just wish I got a little bit more out of it.
Can understand that. It's a recommend for me too, but I would say you need to know going in that this is like a color palette muted, draining all joy from the world lesbian love drama, as opposed to like, oh my God, Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, two totally very different things. I gotta say.
Oh, are we doing that comparison?
Can you imagine Carol with like a fucking lightsaber?
Right?
Like that would have spiced things up, right?
Yeah, Carol Wren. That's her name.
Nice. I love it. Yeah. So for me, I mean, definitely this one's a recommend as long as you know going in, kind of what you're getting. I mean, I would say if you love lipstick, cigarettes, and shiny brooches, this movie and windows, this movie has everything you want and need to be entertained.
Put that on the poster. That's the poster right there.
That's my. You know what?
Brooches.
I gotta say, like, that's gonna be like the soundbite, like on the DVD commercial, like, maybe not really, but anyway, great cast in this film. I mean, Cate Blanchett just continues to be amazing. She's so phenomenal. Rooney Mara. I mean, I felt like her character was a little weird. You know what I mean? And so, in some ways, and we can talk a little bit about it in spoilers, it's kind of like, why aren't we getting more? But I think that's kind of the character. I enjoyed seeing Kyle Chandler a lot. He played the weirdly named Harge, um, Carol's husband. He's got
He's hard and large. He's hard.
yeah, I guess so. You know,
Almost large, but Harge.
right. Right, but I really enjoyed him on a CBS show called Early Edition way back when. He used to get Tomorrow's Newspaper Today and use the articles to like save people. But really liked him in Friday Night Lights as well, the television show. So it's good to see him in a movie doing something good. Sarah Paulson from American Horror Story, a show which all the gays can burn me at the stake, but I just have never really understood the love for. I've tried watching like 2.5 seasons, and it just doesn't do it for me. But I do like Sarah Paulson, and I liked her in this movie as Abby, Carol's friend. And I think I just got my first hate message on Facebook saying, fuck you. Wow, that's crazy.
What's that?
That's crazy. I just said that I don't like American Horror Story, and someone sent me... Well, it's funny hate mail because it's a winky face, so that means they're kidding.
Fuck you.
Don't yuck somebody else's yum.
I didn't say it was a bad show. I just said I never got it for me personally.
Well, and I think there's probably, not to put words in your mouth, Brad, but I am. I think part of the reason that you have a problem with American Horror Story is not that you don't like it, but more that you like the premise and it doesn't always deliver on that. Like
that's a very apt way of putting it. Yes, absolutely. I get really excited about the premise, and then 3 episodes in, I'm like, where the fuck are you going with this? Jesus Christ. But in any event, yes, Sarah Paulson was good to see her. Yeah, I mean, this is one of those films where it's like halfway through the movie, I'm kind of like, I have no idea what this movie is trying to say or where it's trying to go right now. I'm like, it's an hour into the movie at this point, and like, it's, you know, I just don't know where it's going to end up. You know what I mean? I have an inkling.
It ended up exactly where it was at about an hour.
I know, but I enjoyed it. I think it definitely suffers from some pacing issues as well. You know, I keep coming back to comparison between like this movie and The Simple Man. You know, and I kind of wanted to ask you guys before we get into spoiler territory. First, Will, have you seen that one, Colin Firth?
Yes, I have actually, and I love that movie.
Okay, so what do you think about, like, just kind of compare these movies thematically a little bit? What's your thought?
Okay, so obviously there's a very obvious comparison, and that's period piece with a gay subplot.
Mm-hmm.
A single man, right? Is that what you meant?
Yeah, a single man. Yeah.
Did I say a simple man? I was totally thinking of playing some rock band. A simple kind of man.
Of course, they have similar color palettes because anything that's a period piece immediately gets that kind of like gold-yellow tint to it, because that's the case for it. Both leave you with a sense of melancholy. I think that a single man has more of a like punch you in the gut finish without spoiling too much for it, because I think people should totally go watch that if they haven't already. Whereas I think Carol is a little bit more of death by a thousand cuts, so to speak. Like you get like a lot spread out through the course of the movie without that one major just like moment. That's really hard. I don't know if that's that really. I don't know if I got my point across very clearly there.
I think you did.
Yeah. But so yeah, I think both are solid movies. I think it's just a matter of where they put the emotional weight within their story structure.
Okay. So do you like A Single Man better than Carol?
Gun to my head, yes, but I don't think that takes anything away from Carol for me.
Okay. Yeah. Are you only saying
Good
that
answer.
because you have a dick?
No. I'm just thinking about like, it's hard because of recency bias. I just saw Carol. I've seen Single Man a while back, but I'm trying to project myself into the body of Will like 3 years from now. Which one do I think of more readily? And I think A Single Man probably comes into my brain a little bit more quickly than Carol does 3 years from now.
Okay. How about you, Jim?
I mean, I connected to both A Single Man and another movie that you could possibly compare here. There's several movies. Brokeback Mountain, obviously, you could compare this one to that. You know, kind of a forbidden romance between two people of the same sex. you have a movie like Lost in Translation, which is kind of about a forbidden love between two people of the opposite sex, and very similar kind of vibe here, kind of epic star-crossed lovers who can't quite make it happen. And in all of those three movies I mentioned, I felt more of an emotional hit, not just at one moment, but just kind of felt awful for the way this relationship had to exist. I felt that a little bit in Carol, but I just wish the movie had brought that out more. And I know I said that before. I also want to talk about the performances. I mean, Rooney Rooney Mara is good here. A lot of doe-eyed, staring from her, although I have to say that her character probably had the most arc in the movie, without giving away too much. I'd say you could look at this as kind of a coming-of-age movie also, from that character's perspective. But yeah, I mean, I love the performances in that movie, and like I said, I mean, I like kind of the stories that Todd Haynes brings to the screen, and this one was no different. Just came up a little short on the emotional scale for me, and I do relate to movies strongly emotionally. And Brad, you said that this movie, you were kind of wondering about an hour, a little bit more than an hour, where this movie was going, and I had the same feeling too, what it was trying to say, where it was going to go, and without spoiling too much, it kind of stayed static. Not right. And we could talk about that in spoilers where this movie ended up, and maybe that's a good jumping off point. But
yeah,
but it didn't get to a point that I felt it hadn't already made. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, there wasn't a big reveal or like it was building to one particular moment. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. It's all right, we're there. We're there at this point, and there's still 45 minutes to go. So.
But I thought it was right up until the very end. I thought there was going to be something, and we'll talk about some bookend scenes and stuff like that. But, yeah.
I think now's a good place to go ahead and just make that transition. I'm command decisioning.
Let's do it.
Yeah, especially since no one is watching anymore. So you know what? No, that's not true. We have one more person watching.
Hey, one person.
We're happy to have you, one person.
I thought me mentioning Kylo Ren would bring on at least 10.
Maybe if you mentioned him, in a hashtag on Twitter with a link to our live broadcast.
Right.
And now that one person left just to spite us, guys. So
during tonight's Carol review, find out what we secretly think about Kylo Ren. Hashtag Star Wars. Hashtag Force Awakens. Hashtag spoilers.
You won't believe what Carol did when she found Kylo Ren's lightsaber between her cigarette case. Anyway, all right. Right, Spoiler Town. All right, so guys, spoilers for Carol are officially fair game. We do have a couple of you that are hanging out with us, so if you have not seen the film yet and don't want to be spoiled, we take no offense to you slipping away for about 10 minutes or so, and then come back for pluggage. But Jim, yeah, I think that's a great place to kind of come off of.
Begin at the end.
Right, definitely. I mean, I guess we're to assume, right, from that final scene that they get together. So, yes.
I think that's what the movie wants you to think, that this thing is going to continue to kind of spiral, in relation to each other. And
so
I was a little disappointed. I guess I would have. I think I love the bookend scenes. At the beginning of the movie, you have the lunch scene, and at the end of the movie, it comes right back to that scene, and picks up again. I actually thought I was going to get my moment there where, where Kate Blanchett's character Carol figures out that she really does love Therese, but maybe Therese has moved on. You know what I mean? At that point, and that would be the sadness part, the emotional part for me. It didn't really happen that way, and then it was a weird party scene. So here's the thing, right? I'm watching the credits of the movie at the beginning, and I'm seeing the names pop up, and Carrie Brownstein's name comes up.
Yeah.
Right? Well,
right.
you watch Portlandia, right? You've
I
seen
surely
it?
do, yeah.
Right? Love Carrie Brownstein. And I'm like, really? She's in this movie? I can't wait to see her. And then you get to the end, and she's in maybe 30 seconds to a minute of the movie, a small little conversation, and then she's gone. And I'm like, that's weird that she would get billing up front for a role so small and so inconsequential. Obviously, there was some kind of spark between them. I think I heard somewhere, though, that on the Weinstein website, they actually had a bigger role for Carrie Brownstein.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm.
And she played some kind of role toward the end, but they cut that stuff all out of the movie. And so what we're left with was a scene that really didn't make much sense. Maybe just so they could keep her in the movie. I don't know. It was very weird. And then so then at the end where she goes back, where Therese goes back to the dinner party or whatever, and sees Kate Blanchett, and I assume that they reconnect and go forward. I think that's what the movie wants us to think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So that's what I meant by like not much in terms of their relationship. It doesn't appear that a lot changes, other than Kate Blanchett finally admitting that she's in love with Therese.
Well, and they're going to move in together, and Kate Blanchett doesn't have her daughter, right? So, I mean, if you look at the beginning of the movie compared to the end, you know, spoilers, but she's basically getting to live the life that she...
Are they going to move in together, or was it just suggested?
I think it's suggested, and I think that it's okay that it's suggested. Like, I don't think that we needed the finality of this. I think leaving it on sort of a moment of... The key point for the ending of this movie wasn't like what their future is. Like, you know, like, are they going to live happily ever after? Do they live together? Are they together for an extra 50 years? I think the pivotal turn at the end of this movie was where they both realized that this is something that, you know, fuck it, there's a lot of obstacles in front of us, but we may try to pursue this anyway. And I think that was what was interesting for me. Like, it wasn't all about like this one huge moment, this big sweeping these two characters together forever. It was all about just the suggestion of a chance.
Those lines at the end spoken by Carol about, like, you know, I've got my own place, I've got my own apartment over here, and they came across to me like desperation, like trying to get, and that's where I thought maybe the movie would throw that emotional spear at me, you know, like, now everything's settling down in my life. I can now be who I want to be, and I can be with you, and I love you, and yet, you know, maybe Therese has moved on. You know what I mean? And isn't really down for, you know, she's had enough drama with Kate, even though with Carol. I really thought that's the way it was going to go, and then when they had her come back to her, I'm like, oh, that's cute, but it kind of steals some of the weight from that.
I'm kind of there with you. So like that lunch scene or drink scene or whatever it was.
It was a great scene.
It was a phenomenal scene, and for me it was kind of evoking some personal history. Like, I had a relationship once where, you know, for a long time I wanted it to be something that the other person wasn't ready for it to be, and, you know, eventually I had to move on. You know what I mean? And a few months later that person came back and wanted to have all those things with me, and it was, you know, I was in the Therese seat at that point. You know what I mean? And I chose not to go that route. And I thought, man, this movie is so, like, fuck you, movie, for taking me back to that place, but I love you, movie, for taking me back to that place because it's poignant. But then she just goes, like, to the Oak Room or whatever the fuck, and, like, happy ending is suggested. And I'm kind of like, that kind of blows. You know what I mean? Like, I thought this movie set it up so well. But then again, like, how can you not give some kind of hinted happy ending in a film like this? Like, there's certainly not a lot of joy.
Like they did at Brokeback Mountain.
Right.
Well, and for me, I think what worked so well about this movie is, it was less about like whether it was a happy ending or whether it was a sad ending. It was more about the fact that both of the characters came to it on their own terms.
Right.
At certain points in the movie, it felt like Carol was kind of the the stronger personality, and the Rooney Mara character was just sort of along for the ride. And she was just kind of swept into this thing and didn't really have any agency. And when Carol comes back to her with that desperation, because yeah, absolutely, that's a very desperate move. I've got a place. I'm not going to deal with the whole like husband custody thing anymore. Come live with me. Let's do this. That shifted the power back over to the Rooney Mara character. And I have no problem with her coming back around to it on her own terms. She walked away, thought about it, came back, and now they're going to pursue something in some way, shape, or form. I like that. I felt like it equalized those two characters, and that's what this film was all about, was getting these two characters on a specific footing.
Yeah. I mean, the way that scene was great. I mean, the way it was set up, and I love the way they bookended it and came back to it. It was just, I had a point about it and I lost it. Darn it. Help me.
That's just the way, right?
Yeah, I know.
It's so hard to keep things straight.
You know what's going to happen? You lost that idea, but in a few days, that idea is going to come back to you, stare across a crowded dining room. The two of you are going to look and that idea are going to have a future together.
Right. I know.
Indeed. So, sounds like we liked this movie overall. Definitely.
Wanted to like it more, but I did like it.
All right, so quick question, because I think that this is we talked about both Carol and we talked about Joy. Which film did you prefer more? Like, on a whole, like which film did you like the most?
Ooh.
Because I don't know what your answers are going to be based on the way you guys review these episodes.
Yeah, for me it's probably Joy. It could be because it was like Christmas weekend and like Carol totally like sucked all the like happiness out of the world for me during a happy weekend. Whereas Joy, like,
songs are the best. You know that.
I know they are. I don't know. I liked some of the lightheartedness of Joy. I liked some of the fierceness of Joy. I liked her resolve a lot. And, I saw this movie like the next day, and for me it's like Carol doesn't really have much lightheartedness or fierceness or, even her resolve is wishy-washy, especially like with her daughter. You know what I mean? So like as Christmas theme named main characters go, for me it was all about the Joy. But that's me. What about you, Jim?
I think my answer is Carol by a cigarette butt, because I think I appreciated what it was doing. I could appreciate everything it was doing, even if it didn't 100% work on me. Whereas, and I did have frustrations with both films, but I think as far as hanging together as a film, I think Carol was a little bit better. And, Cate Blanchett's performance was amazing. I mean, she could just, like, with one look and one sentence, like, she had some amazing scenes in the movie. And I did think of what I was going to say about the Carol character, in that obviously she had a history, right, with this other character, Abby, at least one time. And what I couldn't figure out was the movie what was different about Therese than Abby that made me think that she was more invested in the Therese relationship than the Abby relationship, because it didn't make it clear to me that yes, Therese is probably the one for her, whereas Abby was not. You know what I mean? That didn't. I actually thought that the way the movie was setting it up, because we learned about Abby pretty early on. She was onto Therese pretty early on, and I'm like, okay, she's this socialite woman who has a high appetite for lovers, I guess, same-sex lovers, and she's just going to go through. This is the way I thought the movie was going. That she was just going to go through Therese, like she did the one before. But I guess obviously that's not the way it worked out, or at least up to the point of the movie we saw, it didn't work out that way. So I'm just trying to figure out like what in the movie was telling me that she. I mean, I know she said she loved Therese at the end. which maybe she did or she didn't with Abby. But it just was, I couldn't tell whether the Therese relationship was the real thing or not.
I thought it was a sugar mama like power dynamic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
Whereas
it's easy.
Abby
It's easy
was-
for her in her socialite
Right.
and wealth position to be in that kind of sugar mama gonna rescue you from, shop girl life.
You be good to sugar mama, she be good to you.
Wow. That is the gayest pull of the episode.
So, Will, what about you? Answer your own question.
Oh, yeah. I would say Carol by one of those long-stemmed cigarette holders.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Joy had some good things in it, but it's going to get lost in the season of movies, whereas Carol's going to be something I'll be thinking about in a week and 2 weeks.
So, real quick, as we look to close up before we move on to plugs, I want to talk about the lesbian sex scene. When we saw this movie,
I know you do.
we saw it in a theater full of our lesbian sisters, and it was so funny when that scene started up. There was lots of leg crossing going on. I'm looking around and I'm like, hope you put some trash bags down, because
It was a very sensual scene. Like it
Right?
was a sexy scene. Like
Very
that's not my predilection, but I still appreciate that when it's done that tastefully and that erotically in a way that works thematically. Like I liked it. It was
Will,
good.
did you see blue as the warmest color?
I did not see that one.
I haven't either. But I want I'm only comparing this lesbian love scene to the one in Black Swan, and I think Black Swan was hotter. Partly because of Mila Kunis, and partly because of the way it was. It came off as more raw animal kind of sex than loving, tender kind of sex.
Yeah, I mean that one. Black Swan was, forgive me for being blunt with this. Like Black Swan was a fucking scene. This was a lovemaking scene.
Right.
And they're gonna have two totally
No
different.
question which one's gonna make me hotter.
oh god, the fact that either of them makes you hot is a problem.
Brad's got a lot of questions.
No, I don't have questions. Those are things I never.
I'm going to explain it right here. I like to see that passion portrayed on the screen. Doesn't matter who the participants are,
as long as they're consenting adults.
As long as they're consenting adults, I that passion, it moves me in a way. We won't say which way, but
No, totally. Like that's the
to the
thing.
left or right.
With the love scene like this, you need it to balance a lot of things. It needs to be sexy. It needs to be genuine. It needs to be sensual. It needs to be sensitive. It needs to be tender. It needs to be a lot of things, because those are the things that this movie has been building up towards. There are a lot of those different adjectives in play, and I feel that love scene was it hit all of those marks. Like it felt sexy without being what's the right word? Pornographic, and that's not even the right word. Without being too over the top or explicit. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I felt like everything was very warranted there. I felt like there was nothing at the end of that sequence where I felt like, oh god, that was the lesbian sex scene put in because this movie needed a lesbian sex scene. It felt like that was the right scene for that movie to put at that particular time. So yeah, it worked.
I was kind of wondering if they were going to go the whole movie without one, and I would have appreciated that as a more of a bold move too, if they didn't, that it was just implied. I guess I didn't feel like I had to have one in this movie.
Yeah, I don't feel like we had to have one, but I think I felt like it worked.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, guys. How do we feel about moving on to some plugs? Are we ready?
Yeah, we're there. Let's do it.
All right. So some quick plugs. I want to give a shout out to our friend Malcolm Ingram, who we got to see at South by Southwest last year. He's got a new film project in the works called Phantom of Winnipeg, and I don't know if you guys have seen Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise?
I haven't.
No, I have not.
I haven't either.
I don't live in Canada or Winnipeg.
A friend of ours this Halloween actually went as Phantom of the Paradise and was kind of telling me about this character. Like he did the whole like
He
costume
dressed up
tricked
as
out.
the dude. Right?
Yeah, and everything. And I was like, I've never heard of this guy. And he's like, well, Darth Vader is based on him. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I kind of started looking it up a little bit. And it's funny, like now Malcolm Ingram is suddenly doing a movie about this fan community based around the film Phantom of the Paradise in Winnipeg. So he's got an Indiegogo campaign that's up and running right now. We'll post a link to it on our Movie Bears podcast wall as well. Trying to raise $20,000. Got about 6 days left. So we've really enjoyed his last few documentary outings. We got to see Out to Win this last year at South by Southwest.
Continental, yeah.
Continental, yep, about the famous New York bathhouse. Phenomenal doc. We got to see Bear Nation, Small Town Gay Bar. I mean, this guy puts out some awesome docs. So if you've got a few bucks to donate this holiday season and you love film and you love documentaries, definitely, even if you have no idea what the fuck the Phantom of the Paradise is,
right,
this
like
movie, I'm sure. Like, now it's like I wanted to see this movie, but now I kind of want to wait.
Well, here's why I want to see it. Paul Williams wrote.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
It's true. And I hear he's still alive.
But you kind of want to see it, like, you want to watch it, like, 4 or 5 hours before you watch, like, the documentary, right?
That's
like,
what I'm saying, yeah. Yeah, like, I want to wait to now watch The Phantom of the Paradise, like, until Malcolm's movie is, like, done and complete. That way I can just, like, watch them both at the same time. Not at the same time, but you know what I mean, like.
Yeah.
Kind of like playing a Pink Floyd album over Wizard of Oz. Backwards.
That's kind of like how new Star Wars movies coming out. Everyone caught up on the old Star Wars movies. Like, yeah, it makes sense.
Yep, totally. Anyway, Malcolm, love the heck out of you, man. Glad to see you doing a new project. We will definitely post some linkage on our wall. Everybody, go donate some money. It's worth your dollars. But Will, what do you got?
Yeah, so I had a chance to see 2 other movies in this like long chain of movies. The first one was Hateful Eight. I'm not going to spend much time on it because it was Tarantino. It was overindulgent and it had serious editing and pacing issues. But that shouldn't be a surprise. It's a Tarantino movie.
I have one question for you on that movie. Sorry. Did you have any projection issues?
No, we saw it in 70 millimeter, and I know some of the films, some of the theaters that were doing the rolling roadshow for it had big projection issues. It shut off at a part, or like one of the reels cut out. We didn't have that.
Good.
We heard it was like a 300 pounds of film is what the projectionist was dealing with. We had an overture like 3 minutes before the movie of just like the score, which was great. A 15-minute intermission, which was an experience.
Appreciated.
Yeah, like the first half of the movie was brilliant, like some of the best stuff Tarantino's ever done, and in the second half he basically undoes any goodwill that I may have had.
Oh boy.
So, I'm not talking spoiler, just saying like parts of it good, parts of it bad.
We'll send all the hate mail to you, Will.
But the one I really want to talk about is The Big Short. The Big Short is one of those movies that I was not expecting to enjoy a whole lot. It was one of those ones like, oh, I've seen it nominated for a few Oscars. I'll go check it out, whatever. But holy crap, it was probably the best movie that I saw this week. And that's a lot because I saw a lot of these Oscar movies. This is a comedy. About the housing crisis, everything that happened, kind of leading up to it, and some guys that kind of bet against it's called a short, bet against the housing crisis itself. Brilliant performances by Christian Bale, by Ryan Gosling is so good in this. Steve Carell, I was not a big fan of him in Foxcatcher, despite all of the nominations. Here, I'm finally seeing that performance that got all of the love. But the best thing about this movie is it is angry. It is an angry comedy, and justifiably so. Like it sees this whole housing crisis and thinks like kind of like fuck you to the guys that caused this, and fuck you to the guys that didn't do anything about it. And it presents it in a way that is extraordinarily relatable, extraordinarily funny, and extraordinarily it makes you angry as well. I'm surprised how much I enjoyed The Big Short, and I think that again, maybe not a movie for absolutely everybody, but I certainly think it's up there for me. Really solid movie. Loved everything that director Adam McKay brought here. It's called The Big Short. Check it out.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Awesome. All right,
it's on our
Jim.
list. It's on our list, Will. If we had gotten to see 3 movies this weekend, that would have been the third one, but we only got 2.
Yeah, sorry. We could have saw 2 movies yesterday, but somebody,
I
Brad.
saw so many movies this week. Oh my god! Like I was cramming them.
We
into
had
every
just a
little
lot
opening.
of other stuff going on,
and that
too.
happens. Yeah,
Work and stuff. So
Right. I had to work part of the weekend. It blew. But I was off Christmas Day, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jim, close us out.
Oh, okay. I will plug 2 quick classic movies that I think a lot of film fans probably would have maybe seen these movies, but if you haven't, get out there and see it. Both of them are available. One of them's available on Fandor, which is I think it's a free service. I don't know how much they require, but I think they might be a small monthly fee. But I love Fandor, and that one is Agira, the Wrath of God. It's a oh boy, here I go again. Werner Herzog movie. I just saw this movie today, actually. From 1972, starring Klaus Kinski, one of Werner Herzog's go-to guys, in an amazing performance. This movie's incredible. It's like Apocalypse Now, only with like Spanish. So it's got German actors playing Spanish explorers in the jungles of Peru. It's a crazy movie. You watch this movie and it's brutal. You wonder how the hell they made this in the jungles of Peru, actually in the jungles, hauling the camera equipment around, getting the actors set up, getting the locals that they hired as extras to do what they wanted to do. The terrain was brutal, the conditions look brutal, and the theme of the movie is brutal. It's about the Spanish explorers' quest to find El Dorado, and things go not so great for this 16th century band of explorers. But great performance by Klaus Kinski. Werner Herzog just makes things very miserable, as he typically does. But it's one you should see. The other one, real quick, is The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. If you haven't seen that one, it's got Humphrey Bogart. It's directed by John Huston, very famous director. A lot of westerns, and it's also got John Huston's dad, Walter Huston, in one of the characters as one of the characters here. This is a great morality tale. It's a great western, fantastically filmed. This one's available, I think, on iTunes right now for like $3 or $4. But the best performance is a guy named Tim Holt, who's in this. It's really a three-hander, between Humphrey Bogart, Walter Huston, and Tim Holt. I like Tim Holt's performance a lot. This movie is also the movie that gave us that classic line, "We don't need no stinking badges." So if you have a chance and you want to catch up on some classic cinema, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre is one you should look up.
There you go. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, that wraps us for this week. It brings our joyful carol to a close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that works. Yeah,
maybe I don't know. I'm still trying to come up with something.
That works better. I guess that works better than all of the half-cooked titles that we came up with. I like that. That works.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a joyful carol of an episode. I don't know. Whatever.
Maybe we'll roll that way. Maybe we won't. We'll see. Anyway, next week we'll have to figure out what we're doing for next week. At this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a bunch. Yeah, we'll talk about it. But you can bet, listeners, if there are any, that it's going to be fun.
I'm sure it will be.
That's what we bring.
Even if we have to review Star Wars again.
What do you guys think of the Star Wars thing? It's pretty cool, right?
All right, folks. Well, listen, if you've enjoyed this episode, you can find all of our past episodes, many of our past episodes, in iTunes or on Stitcher Radio, or go to moviebearspodcast.com, click on episodes, and enjoy our back catalog. We appreciate you hanging out with us live tonight. It was fun. Definitely having you aboard for the ride. For those of you who, unfortunately, did not hang out with us live, you missed a pretty awesome picture of Paul and his partner Mark with their BB-8 droids. So maybe you should go to YouTube and look up the show just for that. It's totally worth it. Just saying. Yeah. Anyway, take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See you later. I'm going to go spend my Zucker bucks.
Oh, my God. It's on Good Morning America. It's not.
I won.
Hoax.
I just won. He just sent me.
It was you, Jim?
Yeah, he just PayPal'd a bunch of money into my account.
Oh, holy shit, Jim! Yeah. Hey, you know.
So it is true.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think we need a recording studio, Jim.
No,
You can afford that now, right?
Fly
Sorry,
me out. You've got the money now. Fly me out to Tucson each week for a live recording.
All right, guys. See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.